Breathe, Think, Love is a podcast showcasing an innovative approach to health and healing beyond the walls of mainstream medicine. Your hosts, Suzanne and Jason, will unveil how we harmonize scalar energy, lymphatic system, and bioelectricity of the body for a holistic preservation of our spirit and soul from a modern roots modality. The intertwining of the triunity of our being unleashes immeasurable power, especially amplified in nature, and will prove to be organically expansive in community.
Breaking news. We're forecasting an outbreak. And the viral infection of love, health, healing, peace, and joy.
Wow. That's awesome breaking news.
Right?
Coming
Pretty exciting.
Coming to a city near us, near you.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And so the infecting agents would be, according to your report, would it be keepers of the wild, harmony at home?
A little bit of it all. The merging of it all.
Right? And the, what do you call it? The concentration of it, or what do you call that? Ground zero is harmony, or harmony homestead.
Pretty cool combining it all onto a health and healing platform in nature. The keepers of the wild.
Right.
And there's some touches even on the spirit part of the wellness circle, mind, body, soul, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree.
So the forest merging, so a place in nature, offering health and healing services and retreats and detox programs.
Right.
Yeah, pretty cool. With accommodations.
So, Jay, how did you get into, like your keepers of the wild? Like, tell me a little bit about, you obviously have a love for nature.
It was truly just coming into my own self. My life went in a certain direction. So a little background on me in that department for this, how it led me there. From a young age, I was born with a father that was had a deep love for the bush and nature and creation, right? And he wasn't like other people's parents, right? He's a pretty special guy, right? Very spiritual, very... so he basically taught me at a young age to be a keeper of the wild, how to take care of nature. And when you're out there, you never take something without giving back, right? Everything's interconnected. And I developed a deep love for nature. And that was my place from a young age, having my diaper changed on the back of a snow machine, ice fishing, because that's where my father was. So he had a baby, I went with him, right? So, hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, year round. And he was involved in some pretty cool stuff, primitive skills and stuff like that. So that was me, that was my life, and I loved it, right? And then growing up, I was just drawn to the military. So at a young age, joined the infantry. And it's like every course, you could get on, jungle warfare, winter warfare. You're just in the bush all the time. Like you're living out there as an infantryman, right? So rain, shine, minus 50, it doesn't matter, and you're not inside. But I loved it, right? I was in the military, but even being in the military, I'd get my time off, and where do I go? I go camping, right? So taking that, I ran a security company for a few years after I left the military. So again, I was always in the wilderness when I wasn't running that security, alarms and cameras, all that fun stuff. But after years of just feeling inside me what I truly am gifted, and everybody who would talk to me would just see the pictures of the things I do and would always talk about it, and they just kept pushing me to, and I'd always thought about doing an outfitting company, but it was just like that. I want to run tours out west. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to show people this stuff, adventures. Like, I want to live the stuff that I love doing and make a living out of it. And beyond that, a calling, share that. Knowledge is meant to be shared, right? It's not meant to be
I agree. Yeah.
kept. So there's a hidden world beyond the matrix world that we live in. And part of that, I think, ties into the health and healing, because it's part of your wellness. It is part of your health. And you are the healthiest when you are outdoors in nature. You know, you feel it. Why do you think people want to go camping and stuff, right? But,
Yeah.
right?
Was seemingly.
But yeah, merging the two, the modalities, and the, right? The intentions, and it just blends perfectly, right?
It's interesting, seemingly opposite to your upbringing. Mine is more,
Exactly, right?
it's like the indoors, you know, and
Office work.
right. So my background really is banking, mortgages.
talk
Actually, I
about that.
dove into that,
Give
and
people a background on you.
right, systems analysis, like business systems analysis. So, so really, it just, I don't know, it just was good at that, and I don't know, not many people know what mortgages mean. I think I've shared this with you before, but mortgages really means death pledge, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, it's like owning a home. It's almost like, it obviously, for most people, it comes at a cost, right?
Of course.
So I kind
There's a
of
cost to everything
made,
in life.
right, I
right?
kind of made that connection. And it's like, if you think about it, living the way we live today, the modern ways, the modern technology that we are surrounded with, and the rushes that we find ourselves in, it's like that. It costs something, right? It's like for you,
Which is why the wilderness was always my escape,
right,
right?
right,
Because it's not really the true world that we live in most of the time.
right.
But you feel a whole different way of peace and interconnectedness, and
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
When you're so
Yeah, and so it's like for us to be living in modern times, it costs us something. It's like you're paying for it. You're paying interest.
Yep.
And you know, they call, like, typically the amortization for a mortgage is 25 years. That's a lifetime, right?
So, yeah.
And so,
That's the
and if we're not addressing the keys, like we referred to in the last podcast, the keys to the significance of the lymphatic system, scalar energy, and your body being
Powerful
bioelectric,
Yeah.
then your really longevity and health is in question,
It's revolutionary.
right? And so there's this credit. So a lot of people are running on credit. A lot of people are running on debt. And at some
Well, they're
point,
sacrificing their health,
Yeah.
right, to keep up with modern day lifestyle,
Right.
right? And
at some point, they
Sacrifices
end
their
up
health.
paying for that.
Yep.
Right. And so, and then I transitioned into business or systems analysis. And so in that context, and at the same time, my love for studying ancient books, like the Bible, the scriptures, it really fueled my hunger and understanding of how everything has a standard to it. So, you know, like there's a standard operating
the
procedures.
unseen world.
So same thing with the human body, right? So the human body has a standard operating procedure, perspective. And if you don't follow that, there are consequences, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, we have been designed beautifully. You know,
Perfectly.
we have this immune system. We have this ability to detox. We have this ability to
And it's so much more than I ever thought in that regard.
yeah.
You know, I learned a lot from you in this department, right? Because it's a bit of a rabbit hole. There's so much more information, right?
Yeah.
And that's hidden, it seems, a little bit.
So
So
I find
but
that we find ourselves really suffering from techno stress,
yeah, for sure.
Right?
That's a big one.
and for us to address or to be able to manage, because when it comes to stress, you know, everyone has a different definition for that, but my definition for stress is for the body's inability to produce energy, the energy that it takes to be able to respond to stress.
Yeah.
So imagine
100%.
we,
Like a battery, right?
well, absolutely. Like we want to make
put
sure.
it in that. I know when you describe things the way you do, like the battery, it really ties it together,
No, absolutely.
right?
And
That is-
so whenever we can, when we learn and when we practice just, like a battery being grounded,
Mhm.
right? How you naturally
Flow.
recharge yourself. How you, because when it comes to even thinking,
Even the electrons tying into that.
well, even when it comes to thinking,
Yep.
right? People think that that's just it's just everybody can think.
Right.
But
Not true.
with a deficiency of energy, you're not thinking at your highest potential.
Yep.
So that then compromises your ability to make decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to respond to stress. So then going back to what we'd established in the last podcast, that we are made up of at least 5 batteries.
Yeah.
So rechargeable batteries. And I think I'd forgotten the 5th one, but it's really, so I talked about water. So the water inside of our bodies is actually a battery source. The
Not just any
mitochondria,
water.
the mitochondria is
important.
huge,
Right.
right?
Yep.
We're talking about, so the mitochondria, the water, we're talking the muscles. So muscles are piezoelectric.
Yeah.
And when you move your muscles, you're producing electrons.
Yeah.
We're talking about, so cellular membrane, right, is another
I love listening to
batteries,
her talk like
battery
this,
to
right?
our bodies, right?
So interesting.
But now the thing is, when we are outside, right, you naturally charge these things. And the 5th one, by the way, is DNA. So there's 5, right? So DNA, not many people think
Yeah.
that that's a battery.
It's a big, yeah.
And as I showed in the previous podcast, the way the structural makeup of a DNA, kind of like a spiral, like that's, that itself, just the fact that it's shaped like that, or if it's structured like that, you're harnessing energy from the stars, right? So it's interesting because there's this study done in Japan,
Yeah.
and it's a white paper article, and I'd encourage, if you have the time, to go check it out if you're one of those
It's
geek-
interesting. Yeah.
geek people that want to read stuff,
Not
right?
geek, just want to be informed.
So the title of the article is Effects of Forest Environment,
Yeah.
right? And so literally when you are outside, you're literally in the bush, you're in the forest, surrounded by trees, you're taking in forest medicine.
Oh yeah.
So how you deal with techno stress on top of, there's other types of stresses, like work stress. So we're talking family stress, relationship stress, right? And even bodily stress. I meet people that say they're not stressed, but when your body isn't able to produce energy because somehow it's compromised, somehow there's a blockage, they actually are stressed without even knowing
It's
it.
really funny because I came to all of this just living the life that I've lived. When you spend a lot of time in the forest, because I've spent months living away from cities, away from the electronics and all of this stuff, when you're around animals, you're around the sounds of the forest, you're living in the rain, the snow, you're breathing that air, you're not going inside. Like when you're outside the way that I am, you get to the point you get so sensitive to you pick up on things, you hear things that other people don't see, you see things, but the energy that you feel, like I could say that I feel the trees and the plants, and somebody would look at me like, you're spending too much time in the bush, right? But like, I'm not kidding. If you would spend the time out there, most people don't have a point of reference because they'll go camping for a weekend and then they go back to the city. I'm not talking about that amount of time in the bush. I'm like, when you're out there right, you feel what you're talking about. So I've experienced it.
And so what happens is, remember this forest medicine, when just being out, breathing in outside air, grounding, if if it's possible for you.
Sitting on the ground, walking
They
on
call
the
it,
ground.
let's call it forest bathing.
Forest
You
bathing, yeah.
you actually activate your natural killer cells.
Yeah.
And that is huge when it comes to combating pathogens, microorganisms that could harm you, that comes from outside and from within your body.
That's why you need the land medicines too, the plants,
Right.
and that's what I'm talking about from a keepers of the wild perspective. Being immersed in nature and living, like, I'll walk through the bush and my body is drawn to certain plants or things, and I'm very hand to mouth. So I'm walking through the bush and somebody that knew would come with me, and they're just watching me like pick these things up everywhere, and they're like, what is that? What is that? Right? And I'm explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't explain to you the overall health, and like, I don't get sick often. But the way I feel eating that stuff, making teas with bush, and knowing what certain things do, and just incorporating in my walking around and rounding, it seems like it's tied together, is all I'm saying.
So in this report,
Yeah.
the white paper publishment there, I'm just going to highlight a few things. So the effects of forest medicine, for example, is it helps with your blood pressure and your heart rate, reduces the levels of blood pressure in middle-aged subjects with high normal blood pressure.
Yeah.
Just by that. Okay. So what else? You're going to see, it can reduce the symptoms for anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, and confusion. Interesting, right? Again, all control groups tested. Number 6, it also helps increase sleep time in middle-aged male office workers. How many people do we have conversations with, or just simply complaining about sleep? It's like, not only are we not dipping into that deep, that's when we clean our bodies,
Yep.
that REM sleep.
Yep.
And there's many factors as to why that is, but our exposure to non-native blue light, right? When the sun sets, blue light shuts off.
Yep.
But most of us,
EMF.
after the sun sets, we're still exposed to blue light. So if you're looking at your cell phone, you're looking at your TV screen, and you're maybe using that most of the time to lull you to sleep, you're looking at it and there's no filter of whatsoever, then most people know that the heat temperature of your phone, same thing with a normal LCD screen, is equivalent to solar noon. So just think of that for a second. You're looking at your phone at 10 p.m. and the receptors in your eyes are looking at solar noon. So why do people get hungry at night? Why do people, do you understand how?
And what kind of light are you getting off the sun and the moon, right?
Yeah.
The sunrise, right? Talk about the sunrise, maybe, and
So,
the comparison, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
So I've experienced that too, right? You feel different when you're outside breathing the fresh air, not inside breathing recirculated air, right?
Right.
And then the sounds, it's a whole thing.
So I think you're talking about,
The
so when
sun,
you look
when
at,
the sun hits me in the morning and I'm sun gazing,
it does something
it
to
does
you.
something to you, and it does something to your thinking. It does something to your soul. It does
Right,
something
right.
to you on all levels.
And you know
Right.
what that really is doing? So just by sun gazing within the first hour of sunrise, also within the last hour of sunset, most people.
But talking light, right?
We're
It's-
designed.
We're made for that light.
We're designed to be sun gazing 365 a day. It's 365 days per year.
Yeah.
But how often do we do that? Hardly, right? But what's happening there is you're literally resetting your circadian rhythm.
Oh,
And so when the sun rises, there's that perfect balance of light.
yeah.
Okay, so the electromagnetic spectrum is huge. We as human beings, we are literally designed to live and be at our best health in the visible light spectrum, which is like less than 1% of the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
So now most of us are finding ourselves exposed to microwaves, your phone is a mini microwave.
Yeah.
Right. And really and literally, we don't think much of this. Like, would you put your head inside a microwave? Unless, at least the microwave has a cover. So it's whatever it's emitting. I know it's 1,000 times more
5G.
powerful, but at least there's a cover, protective cover. Your phone doesn't. Most of us wear our phone next to our breast, by our, in our pockets.
And there's studies done on that too, right?
And why do you think cancers are rising like never before? So my point is, we get x-rays done. We get, x-rays. We get if you look at radio waves. So these are all energy.
They're beaming everywhere. Well, the Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah, that's not designed for optimizing our health, right? So we say all that because
earpods, wireless earpods.
Right, right. So we say all that because we featured a short video. We ended our last podcast with that short video talking about Harmony Homestead. So really, this place will be an oasis for modern root approach to health and wellness. Like we recognize that we live in modern times. Yeah. And not everybody can go out. Not everybody can. We have a vision. Not everyone can just, ground themselves and be mobile. And so we need modern roots solutions. And
that's really ties into the Keepers of the Wild thing, because, the different modalities that we offer, right? Like, it's not just adventure. There's, we take people out and introduce them to the wild, right? A lot of people, like I was lucky to grow up with knowledgeable father, people that were deep into this stuff, right? I meet people everywhere and they'd love to do these things, but they've never had a chance to learn. It's foreign to them, but they've always wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's very rewarding to take somebody and show them, and it's like magic. It opens this whole new world for them, right? Mm-hmm. And I love the feeling of that.
Yeah, and like this place would be, I see it as a place of marrying of energy medicine.
The healing, health, and nature, right?
So energy medicine technology, along with the forest medicine, and both of them. So when I talk about energy medicine technology, we've talked briefly about that in the last podcast again, and with some of the tools that I have. Right, like the biophoton tool, the light tool that I have, which really uses electricity to break apart trap proteins, anti-aging, it's antimicrobial. I talked about microcurrent. I don't know if I did, but actually, anyway, I'll refer to it again at another time. But the point is, when you marry the two, what you're really doing is there's that natural and mimicry of natural coming together, and what it's doing is it's activating your bioelectric body, and natural killer cells being activated, your immune system, right? And so, and super cool how that's all going to look like. We're going to put together a program. We're going to maybe in a series of announcements, we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But I think one of the highlights about this place is that we are erecting geometrically structured
geodesic.
It's called it's a geometrically structured building. It's called a geodesic dome. Yeah. And some A-frame cabins at some point.
And there's energy things that tie into that, right?
Yeah, so
that are conducive to health, like literally the shape of things. I think we've talked.
Well, even when I say
interesting, right? Yeah, like.
Right. So here, right? If you look at the screen, so not many people have seen anything like that. Yeah. And see, you'll notice that
we're building the exact thing right now. Right?
You'll notice that there's the dome itself there's a sacred geometric visuals projected on the walls, right? And we're gonna, maybe furnish it with sheepskin rugs on the wood floor.
High frequency things.
Even when you come to my practice now, instantly you walk in, you'll hear high vibrational music. That's, the solfeggio sounds that's mimicking the sound of nature. So we'll call it a frequency dome.
Yeah.
And it will be a place, a container that will instantly instill a sense of coziness, lightness, peace, resonance.
We'll have a few of these, right?
Right. So we're going to have our treatments here. We're going to have our
The morning sun comes through the windows in the front, glass windows, right? The skylight.
Yeah, talk about that, Jay. Like how it's pretty.
The one, yeah. So we're building 3 of them, right? So our main one, which is, good. The structure, the main building that we're designing, it's a place we're going to stay as well, right? Like it's an off-grid place that we're going to live and do these things. But the main building is literally, the design we came up with was basically if you picture 2 40-foot long shipping containers. And then what we did is basically build a 1,600 square foot pad that covers the top, as you can see in the picture there. So that's a concept. So that's what you see there. That's basically, so the room that's created in the middle is at basically 20 feet wide. So we just basically walled both sides. So you've got a 40 by 20 foot room, right? And then in each shipping container, they're 8 feet wide and 40 feet long. And what's the height? 9.6 or I forget.
The center of the dome is about 14 feet high or about 13 and a half.
That's a 26-foot geodesic dome, like the one in the picture there. I guess that's pretty close to scale, right?
Yeah.
So if you think of the pad as being 1,600 square feet, if you can picture it, the pictures actually should be bigger. So the dome, a 26-foot geodesic dome, so if the room is 20 feet, that's created underneath, the geodesic dome circumference is 26 feet from the door to the other side, right? So it actually is touching the shipping containers on both sides. There's a wraparound deck of about 3.5, 4 feet, and you got a 7-foot or 8-foot deck on the front and back with a walk-around platform like deck. So it's pretty cool. There's off-grid stuff incorporated in this. So it's got like solar panel set up. We got different off-grid systems in place. We've got a well dug there, water system, right? But this is also going to be one of our main buildings to start. When people come in, a reception area, maybe a little lounge, cafe, a place we can present to people, TV.
And then
very rarely.
So remember we talked about our ground zero. This is where
there's 2 more domes after this, but they're not
is going.
Yeah.
The
outbreak.
The outbreak. So this is where our viral infection of love, health and healing and peace and joy. But you know what, Jay? Before we can truly say that we have all that beautiful frequencies and harmony and healing and peace, we must first address inflammation.
100%.
Okay, so and that's the main focus, the primary stuff that we're probably gonna our focal point would be is addressing that, because one cannot heal from anything without first addressing the inflammation. So it's like, think of it as putting out fire and chaos caused by the free radicals.
Oh, it's like fixing your car if there's a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's gotta be in good working condition, right? So if you've got inflammation, that's not good working condition, right? So.
Right. And how do we do that? We literally activate the electrification of our body. Yeah. Because, and I know I'm saying this, and some of you may be familiar with what I'm talking about.
True.
There's this book called Healing is Voltage by Dr. Jerry Tennant.
Awesome
Love
book.
him.
Awesome book.
But he's a really, like where he comes from, right? And I believe this as well, is that if you look at your cells, and you're made up of 100 trillion cells, okay? Your cells, if exposed in the proper environment, if it receives what it needs, if toxins is eliminated and it has power in it, it is designed to live eternally. So I call it eternal cells, right? Yeah. And so like if the 3 things are present, so I call it the pyramid of, I guess, how to be eternal. the tri-unity of it is that you need voltage, first of all. You need not just pieces, but all of the raw materials.
And a balance, right?
all of the raw materials. So meaning if you're building a house, you don't just build a house with just the door without the knob. You know, you don't build the window without the casing. I don't know. I'm not too familiar.
There's a definite sequence or
Right.
marrying it or a step-by-step process, right?
Right. So raw
To do it
materials,
properly. Right.
you need voltage, you need power, you need voltage. And also, most people overlook this. It's the toxins, it's the pathogens, it's to detox.
Well, what you're talking about is the foundation that you build on, right?
Because most people, when they get sick,
Starts in the lymph and right.
So most people, when they get sick,
Yeah.
they right away just look to see, oh, what am I missing? What vitamins, minerals? And so they will go to supplementations. Most people don't think about the toxins that must first be addressed, because the toxins is actually what's causing the
Yes.
inflammation. And I'll
Yes,
explain
yes.
that a little
Yeah.
bit later on. But if the three things are present, you live eternally. So what do I mean by that? Like, every 48 hours, you have new rods and cones in your eyes. The macula of your eyes renews every 48 hours. The lining of your gut is new every 3 days. Skin, every 6 weeks, brand new. So, you know, when you're cleaning your house and you're cleaning the dust off the floor, most people think that's also your skin, right? Just
Yeah.
falling off of you. Liver is huge. Liver is the second largest organ in the human body. If you were to unfold a liver in its single layer cells, you actually can cover up to 7 football fields.
Oh yeah.
And the nervous system, like depending on what books you read, it's new every 8 months. So literally, you're a brand new human being every time you turn a year older. So you're literally 1 year old every time. Supposed to be.
Magic.
You're supposed to be. But the question is, why not? The question is, how come we're aging?
What's interfering?
Right. How come
Right.
we still have the same chronic
food.
pain? Why do we
Screens,
do we get,
unhealthy lifestyle?
you know? So
All of
that
it.
the question is, why is that? So again, going back to what I just said, it's not that you're aging or you're degenerating, it's you're lacking one of the three things,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at, let's take voltage, like, you know, the cells being an energy source, or it needs energy, I should say. And we talked about the 5 rechargeable batteries, right? So the 5 rechargeable batteries, if any of those are compromised, then you're losing a source of power. But if you try this, right? So if you examine a cell, and studies have been done proving this, a cell at its normal functioning stage, whatever, it's just normal, it needs to run at minus 25 millivolts. Okay, so that's in voltage, right? Minus 25 millivolts. When a cell gets injured, it needs
To heal.
to double up that voltage requirement. So from minus 25, it needs to go up to minus 50. Okay, because so what happens is when a cell injures itself, it needs to do a number of things. One is it needs to obviously call on the systems to come in, replace and repair,
Yes.
right? New materials or what's the word? Like materials that are reused, because the body has the capability
vitamins.
of actually reusing misfolded proteins, right? It can do that. It also needs to protect itself against pathogens and microorganisms and poisons that is released inside the cells once it's injured. So it needs double the power to do all that, plus to repair it, right? To detox itself out of the poison. So what happens is, if I were to injure my thumb, let's say,
Or your finger.
yeah, right?
I cut my finger with a scissors saw.
Right? If you were to injure your
I'm a
thumb,
barometer
your
now.
finger, whatever it is, what happens is from minus 25, it will immediately go up to minus 50. So when you feel that throbbing, that sort of, that pain,
Oh yeah.
right? So we have to know the difference between two kinds of pain. There's a degenerative pain, there's a regenerative pain. So when you feel that pulsing pain, that's power. That's current has to go up to minus 50.
Yeah.
And when it reaches minus 50, it does all the healing perfectly.
Yeah.
And then once it's healed up, the voltage goes down. It drops down to minus 25 millivolts again. Okay, so then you're not going to feel the pain. So the pain is temporary while the cell is healing itself, requiring minus 50. But what happens is, this is what happens with chronic pain. So, you injure your cells from minus 25. It needs to go up to minus 50, but
something's blocking.
For some reason, it can't. So it's stuck at minus 35, minus 40.
And you can measure this. You've shown me, right?
I have the ability to measure it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
So, but what happens when it's stuck at minus 40? So now that throbbing, that pulsing pain that should be going away, right, keeps at it. It's still painful. 6-7 months later, it's still painful. Why?
Yeah.
Because it hasn't reached the minus 50. There's something stealing the voltage, the source of power,
so
electrons.
right.
There's So what's happening is now it's chronic pain, right? Because, when we have chronic pain, we tend to complain. We tend to normalize it. It is what it is. But most people aren't thinking, you know what? The cells are actually wanting to heal you.
Yeah.
And pain that's chronic is a way of the body talking to you, saying, pay attention. I need these 3 things. You're not giving me this.
Yeah.
I have. So that's how it works. So cells, so how does, so right on there, that's exactly it. So on the screen there, you're going to see that pain and healing. There's the, minus 50 millivolts. And here's the interesting part. So I said minus 25 is the functioning, normal function, right? Now, let's say that source of energy or power isn't being given to the cells, and then it continues to lose its voltage, right? So now, when you get down to maybe 0 millivolts, that's when polarity flips. So if you remember, I was showing that pendulum where when the polarity flips,
like a battery,
the battery's polarity flips, it turns counterclockwise.
Yeah.
That's because the millivolts just hit 0. So now it turns.
Yeah.
The polarity's flipped. Now, as the voltage drops, then we're talking, now you're feeling symptoms, right? Tiredness. Now you're feeling, and then when does cancer begin? Most people don't know that cancer is now running at plus 20 and higher. And all of that as a result of the cells having no voltage. So if you look at cells, 90% of cells is water.
Yeah.
So if you do a science experiment, right, and
salt and water.
Yes.
That's what a battery is, right?
Right.
Salt is a whole other conversation, right?
Right. So Jay, you said salt. So people don't realize that we are literally made up of the same mineral composition of seawater.
Yeah, so interesting.
So you are an ocean water. Ocean water has 92 minerals. You have 92 minerals.
How much does table salt have again?
So there's different kinds of salt.
Right.
Table salt, the most ingredient of it, the most prominent ingredient is sodium and chloride.
Right.
So those two are very harsh, especially if it's in just that concentration. So what happens is it shuts off your taste receptors. Yeah. So imagine you're losing 2.5 liters of salt water every single day. Yeah. And you're replacing it with hardly any minerals. Yeah. On top of that, you're putting in sodium chloride in your food. Yeah. And so then it's destroying your taste receptors, and you're like, how come the food's not salty enough? I want more. You see, now there's a misbalance. You have an overabundance of sodium. Yeah. So when the doctor says to you, lay off salt, he's talking about the 2 mineral table salt.
That salt.
So then there are other kinds of salt. Yeah. There's called Celtic salt or Baja Gold. These have 82 to 90 minerals. Okay.
And when you incorporate that in in your diet, you see the difference. You feel like a battery, literally.
Well, you literally need it. It's not
Yeah,
even, you
yeah.
need to replace those the seawater inside of you.
The water's key and the salt, right?
Right. So going back to the water experiment. So if you take a glass of water and you blow a bubble into it. Now, if like you bubble oxygen into it, right? What happens is if you add voltage into the water, it actually the oxygen will dissolve into the solution. Okay? You reduce
Doesn't
the
that make
voltage.
hydrogen? Oh.
So you reduce the voltage in the water, and what happens is oxygen goes out. So this is what happens in the cells. When the cells is made up of water, when voltage runs out or it goes down, oxygen goes down or goes out.
Yeah.
And so the problem with oxygen, here's the thing. When oxygen goes out of the human body, of the human cells, bugs wake up.
Yeah.
So I call them bugs, right? And
So interesting, eh?
these bugs, otherwise, if there were sufficient oxygen in the cells, these bugs would be dormant.
Yeah.
And so what happens is when bugs wake up, they're hungry and they don't have teeth. So they release digestive enzymes and then they start to consume the tissues around them. And that's what causes inflammation. And that would, translate to all kinds of different manifestation of inflammation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But, if you look at from a lymphatic perspective, so on the screen, you're going to see, in the column A and column B. So if you go back up top there, Tristan, where that you are actually on that right slide there. That one. Yeah, that one. Just where the tissues, yeah. Anyway, so if you look at the diagram, right? In column A, that's what a healthy cell is supposed to look like. You see how it's just, there's no over watering going on, right? Yeah, it's dry. It's in a dry state. But when there's congestion going on, that's how it looks like column B.
Expanded. Right?
So you can see that there's fluid retained inside the tissues, in the interstitial space of the cells. And this is what I mean. When this happens, okay, the power sources of the cells gets disrupted, right? The balance of that sodium-potassium balance gets disrupted. Because what happens is now all of a sudden the cells...
And this is why you got to pee after the lymphatic.
Yeah, well, what happens is when I do a treatment...
It frees this up, right?
Right. So what's going on in column B there is part of the reason why it's congesting and it's retaining fluid is because there's proteins trapped. What happens is proteins, the only thing that picks up protein out of this is a working lymphatic system or an unclogged lymphatic system. So when I do my treatment, I use electricity. And electricity basically will break apart the proteins trapped in the cells. And these proteins now get back into circulation. And, and it really does help with the flow.
Yep.
Right? So that's a part of the reason why, obviously from here, most women over 40 or 50...
retain water.
They're like, I'm eating the same way, but how come I'm gaining weight?
So interesting. Yep.
So we have to understand the difference. There's fat weight, there's water weight. And one of the signs of maybe you're just retaining fluid is, first of all, you're eating healthy or what you consider healthy. You're not really eating too much calories, but you're still retaining fluid. Also, when you see your weight fluctuate, like all of a sudden you've gained 5 pounds. And then you lose 3, like your clothes don't fit the same as before. So when I do my treatment, clients who come on a regular basis, even though sometimes weight, when you track weight, there's sometimes set points. So it takes a little while until you break that. Baseline. So it's like, I've been doing all this diet and, exercising. I don't know why I'm still weighing the same. So the body,
Other things are coming into play.
yeah, the body has a set point sometimes, and until it takes care of all the other businesses that the body requires, it will maintain that weight for a reason. But my point is, even though they're not losing the weight in a significant way that they expect, a lot of my clients are saying, you know what, I fit better in my clothing, right? So that's part of what happens, is because I'm retraining the lymph to move and to leave these areas that are congested, right? Because I'm decongesting the system. But so what are signs of inflammation, right? Okay, so this right here, I call this the Omura O-ring test, and I've done this to my clients as well. And
the battery voltage test.
Right. So, everything has a polarity. Mm-hmm. Your fingers has a polarity. One's plus, minus, plus, minus. So when you put a plus and a minus together, like what you see in the first picture there, so both fingers together, and you ask the person to be strong, right? You'll feel strength when they do that. But all of a sudden, when you introduce an open circuit, and how I introduce that open circuit is you put a couple fingers on your belly button. So the belly button has an open circuit. So when you put your pointy finger and your middle finger on your
like that,
on your belly button, right? So you've just introduced an open circuit.
Yeah.
So what it does is no matter how strong the person is, you ask them to be strong, they will never be strong. It's like they can't
won't be able to hold.
They can't hold their strength.
Test, yeah.
So this is called a muscle test. Really, it's a muscle test, and I use this to determine what the body requires, or I do muscle testing if maybe you have parasites, or you may have some liver impairments, some toxins, you're allergic to this, and that. Like I have vials in my practice that we can test you with. And then I use that as a diagnostic, sort of just to find out what your body wants, and then I'll turn that into a remedy frequency. Yeah. So that's what that is.
I've experienced it. It's cool.
Right. Yeah. But my point is, when we have inflammation creates open circuits in the body. So when there's an open circuit in your electric body, then what happens is the flow of energy doesn't flow as it should. So there's an impedance, there's an obstruction. And obviously you don't want that, because cells need power to operate. And see, another thing that most people don't think about, emotions or negative emotions that are chronic actually creates a block around cells, right? So, and many times when I'm treating clients and you kind of discern what their issues are, what they're struggling with, some of the emotions they're carrying, a lot of times it actually manifests that to the particular organ that has been studied to hold that particular emotion. So for example, liver,
for that. Yeah.
Right, liver holds anger. Yeah. Worry and anxiety. Most women, a lot of people worry, and a lot of people are in anxiety, and that manifests itself in the gut and the abdomen, right? So, excuse me. So yeah, but a part of what we want to, like, going back to what we were talking about. So in Harmony, at the place, what we're working towards building and developing, Harmony Homestead, before we achieve that abundant peace, love, and joy, we need to first address inflammation, because inflammation is an electron stealer. It's an energy stealer. So, for you to appreciate peace and abundance, and even learn, because the program we're going to put together, there's also going to be an emphasis on education. Yeah. Because I believe that when people know better,
know this stuff.
Yeah, when people know better, they do better, right?
100%.
So, like, if you know what your supplement is doing, then you would take it even more, by conviction. Yeah. A lot of people pop-in vitamins.
There's a lot of information that seems really conflicting out there, but when you really boil it down and look at it, like, it's pretty powerful stuff, right? And I think this is the future of health. Like, a lot of this stuff, like, it's starting to come out mainstream, right?
Well, even a lot of people just go for like the multivitamins approach, prenatal vitamins. Like
But it's not like that.
no, because what happens is you're just paying for your pee to be expensive pee, right? So a lot of times you're not absorbing that. There's fillers in there. The ratio between calcium and magnesium is off. So point being is just like people are designed to be in relationships, right? One husband, one spouse, same thing with vitamins, right? And minerals. They're designed to be in relationships. So there's cofactors. So we can't just be popping in multivitamins and expecting it to work, right? So for me, I encourage everyone to, when it comes to my suggestions as far as vitamins and supplements, it's targeting the mitochondria. So whatever I suggest to my clients, it's the reason why we're doing this, and I'll explain why. It's because we want to power up the mitochondria, which is a battery resource. It's a battery source. Yep. It's I had a conversation with my client today. He's so cute. But like I was talking to him about the mitochondria, right? And he says to me, I love.
And you've never heard this stuff.
No.
Most people have never heard this stuff before, right? But
no. So he says to me, I love numbers, Suzanne, so you can talk to me about numbers. Okay, good.
369.
So I said to him, okay, and I'm trying to explain to him what the mitochondria is. And I said, you know what? Do you know how many mitochondria you have? So I think I've established we have 100 trillion cells. So just think about that. 100 trillion. You can't even fathom that. So then each of those cells has an average of 500 mitochondria. And in some books, we have 40 quadrillion mitochondria. Can you, have you even heard of the term quadrillion before? So that's one battery inside the body. Why do we have that much? So in the mitochondria produces ATP and ADP. So these are batteries, right? Charged and uncharged, right? And there's a whole cycle that has to, the Krebs cycle, it's what's called. But anyway, ATP, I think of it as ATM, like machine, right? So it's money, right? So each mitochondria has a nanomotor and it spins 9,000 spins per minute. Like it's like a machine. Yeah. And that machine has to be supported and has to be receiving its proper content for it to work. Imagine something makes the machine stuck. Like it's not working, that motor. But anyway, Jay, did you know that one heartbeat, how many ATPs is required for just one heartbeat?
You tell me.
1 billion ATPs.
So cool.
1 billion ATP, one heartbeat. So no one's counting their heartbeats. It's an unconscious thing. But my point is, can you imagine all the other processes that happens inside the body? So when we understand health and healing, this is where we have to approach it. Mm-hmm. So that you're not, mystified. You're not struck. You're not stuck. You're not like, I've been doing this.
It really is a science, right?
Right.
When you understand it from that, right?
Perspective, right.
Then you think of it all like that, and it makes so much more sense.
Right. And most people are just, are just sort of programmed or familiar with inflammation as pain. Mm-hmm. That's one aspect. So what are the other signs of inflammation, right? So hypersensitivity. Okay. So, I'm going to say it. You're ticklish in certain areas.
Oh, here we go.
Super sensitive. Okay. And anyway, so thank you. So you know what? I'll get into the inflammation at our next podcast. But before we end, I just want to also say
about our
we recently posted on Facebook. And just you check us out, Harmony Homestead on Facebook. And it's really a moment of pause. And I'll just read it off the Facebook. So we put up a song cover that was, anyway, it's...
what's the name of the song again?
Last Night of the World.
Last Night of the World.
So Last Night of the World...
So the meaning of it.
It makes you ponder this song. And I asked the question, what if today was your last? Who, what, and where do you see your existence? So Harmony Homestead is tribing up with like-minded grassroots people, keepers of the wild, keepers of health, keepers of love and joy, to meet and make the new world of abundant healing, wellness, and peace. So this year, 2025, is the year to find your family of frequencies. So just putting it out there, if that resonates or whatever, if you're curious at all, give us a shout or private message or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Wow, time went by fast.
Another good podcast, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So make sure to follow us for more. Check us out on Facebook, yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Super cool, guys. Talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.